Grab the gauges. Back over here. Good. Good. Not good. No. Okay, so we're in the next day after my big fumble, which the valve guide went from here and slid down this hole right here, and taking a little mini camera, I know that it is way down in this slot, and if I can get the light just right, yeah, there's a tiny little hole right down at the bottom there. That's where this thing slid into, and I was able to get my little telescoping camera down there. I can see it. Now I just got to try to get it hooked. So it fell in the perfect spot to cause me more trouble. So Job 14 says that man's days will be full of trouble. And that is the truth. So I'm going to attempt to get this out today. Lord willing, it'll come out sooner than later. Worst case scenario is it drops down to the bottom and I got to take the oil pan off. So, our best case scenario. Worst case scenario is it gets lodged deeper down, but so we'll see. Let's see if I can get out of this trouble today. Okay, so if you have seen the last episode, you know that the valve feeler gauge went way down here. I took this off. This is the cam chain guide. And then I used this little camera and a little hook. And then I tried to get fish down and see if I could find it. I did see the valve clearance gauge, and I even hooked it one time. And when I pulled it up, it didn't hook all the way and fell back down. So after looking at the video and trying to determine where I was, I'm pretty sure that I was all the way down to the oil pan. Now, unfortunately, on this motorcycle, there's something in the way called exhaust. So these exhaust pipes on the other side, over on this side, they get in the way of taking the bolts off. So I've already drained the oil, as you can see, and while I was working on trying to fish it out, I've also put some Evapo-Rust gel on these parts. And here is, let me get a flashlight. Okay, so you can see the oil pan bolts and the exhaust system here is in the way. You can see this bolt way back here holds the big container, they call it, I think, which the exhaust hooks into. And let's see, you got the rear exhaust. Right there, the rear exhaust clamps. You got this bolt here on this side. Is right there on the left hand side. And you can see I put the rust gel, the white stuff, on here. Hopefully that will help get these clamps off without breaking anything. And gotta pry, take this bolt on this side off and pry these collars down right here without breaking anything. So we got to get this oil pan down so I can get the feeler gauge out, and then we can be back to square. Then we can be back to square one of finishing the valves and putting everything back on together, and maybe getting it to run. If you were with me last episode, you know that I dropped one of these feeler gauges down in this area, and it fell all the way, I think, all the way to the oil pan. I used this camera and spent a little bit of time, or a good bit of time, probably too much time, trying to fish it out, getting it back up through the top. But I was able to find it and see it, and even I hooked it one time, but didn't hook it quite good enough, and it dropped back down or did not come up all the way. So the reason why I spent time fishing is because to get this oil pan off, which I already drained the oil, and I started to take the pan off, but the exhaust system is in the way of getting to all the bolts. So to remove it, you have to take this collar off here. You have to remove this center bolt here. You have to remove the rear clamp that holds the rear exhaust, and that is there, clamped right there. And you can leave all the exhaust on. This container here holds the two sides together. So this drops as one big piece, and I'm going to leave the rear pipes on it. Hopefully not scratch them up. Remove this bolt. Then on this side, pretty much the same thing. We have this bolt, this collar here. The clamp is right there. The nut, which is to the bolt on the other side, is right there. And this bolt here to the pipe. So this all comes out as one piece, like I said. And we're going to try to get this off and get the oil pan off. And you can see the bolts here are to the oil pan on this side or above that center can. And then the pipe on this side makes it all pretty much impossible to get to the bolts on this side. The other side are accessible, the left side. So we're going to attempt to do this and try not to make any more trouble for myself. You know, when you do these kind of projects, you make mistakes. And yes, I should have. There was a million ways I'm sure you thought of as you were watching my video of, oh, why are you doing this? Tie the string around them, tie them together, put a screwdriver, tie a screwdriver to them. Many ways to do it right. And I did it wrong. So, got to pay the price for what I did. Drop the oil pan, get the feeler gauge out, and move on with the project. Okay, so here we are back in my garage. And the last time I was out here I was attempting to remove all the exhaust bolts that hold the whole exhaust system on. The collars on the front, left and right, were loosened and lowered. There's a center bolt way in here. I don't think you can. Right there, the center bolt. So that was removed. And the only problem I have left is this collar, this ring here that holds the rear exhaust to the bottom, the rear header to the bottom exhaust. And it's at such an angle that it's hard for me to get a wrench on it that I have in my garage. So I'm going to try a wrench I ordered from Amazon with a swivel box end. See if I can break this thing loose without breaking anything else. So that's my next goal. And then these rear bolts hold the exhaust pipes on the back on. So once I get this one collar to loosen up, we should be able to drop the exhaust, drop the pan, get the feeler gauge out, and move back to ground zero. That's the goal. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my garage. So, last night I was able to get my exhaust dropped down, and then I stopped at that point. So what my real issue is this was turned in such a way I couldn't get a wrench on it. So what I did finally was take some vice grips to the end of the threads and was able to get it to move little by little by little until I could get this bracket turned around in such a way I could get a wrench on it. So that was the issue, and I was able to squeeze a pair of vice grips in this little area right here and get this worked out. So that's good. That's where we are. And so this is dropped down. I'm going to soak this in my Evapo-Rust. And that's going to happen. And we're going to drop this oil pan next and see if we can find our feeler gauge. So that's next. And I will record that. I'll also, in order to get this down, I use this pry bar right in here just to slowly shim it down on this side and on the other side. And then it finally broke free. So it was like right here, and just slowly shim it down here, move on the other side, and slowly do the same thing on the other side. So you get all the bolts out, and then you just have to free it, remove these bolts. I did loosen the muffler, but I was not able to free this up to get this piece out of the way to work on this bolt. But we got it, and once I did that, I called it a night. So we're gonna drop the oil pan and see what we can find. There she is, right there. That's where it was sitting this whole time. So, mission accomplished. Pickle fixed. Also, this has a oil strainer, so we're going to take that off and clean it up and see what else we can clean up here. But should be good to go now. And we're going to soak our exhaust system in Evapo-Rust and then see what else we need to do. But now we can finish the valves, torque everything down, put everything back on. Eventually I'm going to polish these covers, but I don't think I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do that later. I'm going to try to get this running. We got to get all these gas lines worked out. So this is the Wintergreen solution, which is very strong wintergreen. And what it is this right here with 1 part that, 3 parts alcohol, and this has been soaking for a couple days, maybe 2 days. So let's take a look and see how it's coming. Okay, so these pieces are molded pieces, so the center is going to stay hard, but the ends were as hard as a rock before. And we may still, I mean, there's no crack in it, so we should be able to use it. So you can see it does, and this end here wasn't sticking in the solution very well. It's still hard. So we're going to put that down in the liquid. This hose here was not flexible before, but now it bends. We just got to get, this was a radiator hose, which we may probably buy a new hose, but this is more of an experiment. There's not really any cracks, so we probably can still use this. So we're going to put this down in the solution better. These molded pieces are the ones that I'm really trying to salvage and just get the ends where you can put the clamp on it and it'll seal. And this stuff does make your rubber piece expand, but it goes back to its original shape after you get it out of here. So a little bit more here, see what it'll do. But if you need to salvage some rubber pieces, this is one way to do it. And some of this I'll still put new hoses, but I've got more rubber pieces to try to salvage than these hoses. So this is a good test of what it can do. Look what I found in the oil strainer. Somebody lost some clips along the way. Let's hope those clips have been replaced somewhere. I'm guessing these would have been the cam clips, so I'll have to double check those. But I'm not the only one who's dropped something down the engine. So we'll see what we can find else we can find. Okay, after looking more closely at this, these are little metal shavings of something. So it's not a clip, it's not a missing part, but maybe happened in the break-in. So not sure what this is, but I'm glad it's not in the engine anymore. This little piece. So it's good that it is not in the engine. And so that's probably good that the oil pan was dropped and got those metal pieces out. So everything works out for a reason, as we know. So I set this to 37 foot-pounds, about 50 Newton meters, and the book is in between, I think it was 48 and 52 Newton meters. So 35 to 38 foot-pounds. So these 4 bolts I took off to check to try to get down in the hole here. So this is set back to where it was. Okay, so now we're back to the valve, checking the valves again. And here's a little something you can do just to keep this from going all the way down through the engine. I'm going to go around, check it again, and tighten the nuts on the valve adjustments per spec on torque, and then we will put the covers back on and call it a day. Okay, so the adjustment nut is 21 to 25 Newton meters torque. So we're going to do that. When installing the front valve cover, make sure these tabs line up to the rear. Tabs to the rear on this one. Now let's do the top. On the front top valve cover, the little gap plate here, we want to make sure the tab here is to the front. So the top plate has a F with an arrow, not these tabs because they're on both sides. So you got an F with an arrow. Because I believe these things can be put on backwards, which would not, I think, cause leaks. So we're going to put this on and tighten it up. So we got our valve covers back on. We got our side cover back on for the stator. We got this valve cover back on. We got to put the oil pan back on. And then we'll be back to where we were when I dropped the feeler gauge. So I've got a new oil filter coming in tomorrow, so we'll put that in, put new oil in, and then we can work on the gas problem, getting fuel. So getting back to it. We also have our exhaust sitting in the Evapo-Rust, and we got rags on the parts that can't sit in the liquid, because I'm not buying any more of that liquid gold, but this should be enough to maybe get all these pieces apart, and then I can soak them a little bit better. So of course it'll smoke some when we start it up, get it hot, but it'll evaporate out. So this is part of the cleanup. As far as I do want to polish these, but I'm not going to do it right now. So I'd really like to get this started before I go too much further. So that's why I put these back on. We can take them back off pretty easy. So we'll see. We may be able to try to start it tomorrow. We'll see.